Alrighty, so I was in the middle of making a different video actually about Shigaraki and how he's finally broken free of All For One's control and facing off against Deku, and how I'm really loving that development. But then I came across this thought literally while recording, which you'll hear in that video once I upload it. And that's the fact that I think All For One and All Might are going to be facing off here. The reasons for this being is that thematically it makes a lot of sense with All For One kind of being in this form that's not going to last very long unless he could get to Shigaraki and fully take over. And then All Might, of course, could only transform for like 2 seconds at a time, and he's carrying around this briefcase which may have his costume in it or something, maybe some sort of support item. But the both of them are old, past their time, and only really have embers left essentially, a fleeting fire at most, which is how All Might's usually been depicted as far as his one for all usage and him using up the last pieces of it. Now, at the moment, 2 chapters ago or so in Gentle Return, we get that brief glimpse of All Might running out with his suitcase. It's easily missed. I actually had to scan through the chapter a few times to find it, but I think it's there for a reason. He's in a hurry to get somewhere, and I think he's in a hurry to try to stop All For One, who is now leaving the battlefield that Endeavor, Hawks, and Dabi were at. All For One is inherently All Might's villain, and All Might is the hero to his villain. They were the ones facing off for all those years before Deku was even born. And now with Shigaraki telling Deku that he is his villain, it would really be cool to see the previous generation of the villain and the hero facing off while the new generation does the same, this being Deku and Shigaraki now. I don't really see anyone else who's going to be able to get in the All For One's way right now, as Hawks is seemingly going to have to help Endeavor, although he was trying to stop All For One from heading over to the other battlefield. I just think this would be a great way to give something for All Might to do, as well as a beautiful send-off if he does end up dying here, which would lead to even more impact for both Shigaraki and Deku. Even though All For One was taking over Shigaraki, he was his father-like figure for the majority of his life, who was manipulating him, but this could just add fuel to both their fires in their own battle. So I think before we see them and the climax of their battle, to see All For One and All Might face off one last time with the embers of what they have left would be super poetic, thematic, and beautiful. The parallel between both All For One and All Might here is really great, as All For One is trying to make his way over to this battlefield to interfere in Shigaraki and Deku's fight in order to take over Shigaraki and continue his reign into this next generation. Here, of course, All For One's being selfish, whereas opposing him, All Might, who's trying to stop him from making his way to this battlefield, is trusting what he taught to Deku and what he's leaving with Deku into this new generation. He's selflessly giving himself up instead of preserving his own power. He's leading it on to Deku, and of course by transferring Deku one for all to begin with, he did this, whereas All For One transferred his quirks into Shigaraki in order to just take over his body. So of course All Might is selflessly passing his quirk on to Deku, and we've seen that in order to further the next generation. All For One is doing the opposite, where he's trying to take over Shigaraki and continue his reign. Also, if I'm remembering correctly, the only reason All For One is in this current younger, fleeting state of his is because of re-engineering or reverse engineering one of Ares' quirk-destroying bullets that Overhaul was using, that they got their hands on, of course, back in like Season 4, and with that logic, we could also say, okay, maybe All Might is going to have something in that briefcase from Ares that has the same effects, some sort of last resort thing that, like All For One, is going to be fleeting. It's a younger version of himself, more so in his prime, but it's only going to last so long. So again, it's just another way of showing the embers of these 2 previous generations' big names fighting one last time, and regardless of how it happens, I think it's going to be really, really cool to see. I think this is what's being set up here. I'm fairly certain. I haven't seen anyone mention it yet, but it's very likely and possible that people have. I haven't been consuming much content outside of just the plain manga itself, which is all I've really been in the mood for recently. But yeah, this is just something that I thought about and really wanted to just rush and make a video on, because the thought is really exciting, and I think it could be a really great send-off for these characters right here at the end of the story. Everyone's kind of getting like their last big battle, and it makes sense in my opinion for All Might and All For One to have that here, and it would just further the impact on our 2 main protagonists and antagonists, that being Shigaraki and Deku. This is their story, and having these previous 2 big figures in the My Hero Academia world, or biggest figures I should say, facing off and ending things here leading into this new generation and their battle would be really great. I can't think of honestly like a cooler way for these characters to kind of end off. And yeah, that's it for this video. If you did enjoy, please subscribe, comment your thoughts on the theory below. You could expand upon it. Let me know if you think it's likely. Maybe I'm just pulling this out of nowhere and you don't think this is going to happen. Please let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.